ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जायमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 26, Fundamental Principles of Material Nature. So now Lord Kapila is going to go ahead with a very hardcore discussion about uh, the different Sankhya that we are going to see. So text 11 we had seen the aggregate elements, namely the 5 gross elements, 5 subtle elements, 4 internal senses, 5 senses for gathering knowledge, and 5 outward organs of action are known as pradhana. So pradhana. So we come to text 12. Mahabhutani panchaiva भूर आपोऽग्निमरुन्नभः तन्मात्राणि च तावन्ति गन्धादीनि मतानि मे. Translation.
There are 5 gross elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether. There are also 5 subtle elements, namely smell, taste, color, touch, and sound. Hare Krishna.
So there are Pancha Mahabhuta, 5 gross elements, and then there are Tanmatra. So look at the word meaning of the word Tanmatra. Tanmatra means the subtle elements. So there are 5 Tanmatras and 5 gross elements. So 5 gross elements are earth, water, fire, air, ether, bhumi, rapo, anulo, vayu, kham. And then there are 5 subtle elements here. The Lord talks about gandha adi, gandha, the smell, gandha, taste, rasa, then color, ranga, touch, the form, and sound, shabda. Right. So these are the 5 subtle elements. Text 13. Indriyani dashashrotram tvagdrak rasana vakchaurau charanau mendram payurdashamuchyate. Translation.
Translation: the senses for acquiring knowledge and the organs for action number 10, namely the auditory sense, the sense of taste, the tactile sense, the sense of sight, sense of smell, and the active organs for speaking, working, traveling, generating, and evacuating. Hare Krishna.
So then the next are Indriyani dashashrotam. So there are the 10 senses. So here in the sense, it is described as 5 karmendriyas and 5 gyanendriyas. Text 14. Mano buddhir ahankara chittam iti antaratmakam chaturtha lakshate bhedo vrittya lakshana rupaya. Translation.
The internal subtle senses are experienced as having 4 aspects in the shape of mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness. Distinction between them can be made only by different functions since they represent different characteristics. Purport. The four internal senses or subtle senses described herein are defined by different characteristics. When pure consciousness is polluted by material contamination, and when identification with the body becomes prominent, one is said to be situated under false ego. Consciousness is the function of the soul, and therefore, behind consciousness, there is soul. Consciousness polluted by material contamination is called ahankara.
Then there are the four aspects of the internal subtle senses, and they are mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness. Right. So here it is. We have seen text 12, 5 plus 5, text 13, 5 plus 5, text 14, 4, and these are 24 elements that we have discussed. Right. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the four internal senses, they can be differentiated by different characteristics, and especially now mind, intelligence, ego, bhumi, rapo, anulo, vayu, kham, mano, buddhi, ahankara, these are all seen properly. And along with ahankar, there is contaminated consciousness. Ahankar is ego. So contaminated consciousness, Prabhupada says, consciousness is actually symptom of the soul. And without consciousness, without soul, there can be no consciousness. But however, this consciousness is polluted by material contamination, and it is called as ahankar. Right. So these are the four elements. Manah, buddhi, ahankar, chitta. Right. So these are the four. Text 15. एतावानेव संख्यातो ब्रह्मणः सगुणस्य सन्निवेशो मया प्रोक्तो यः कालः पंचविंशकः. Translation.
All these are considered the qualified Brahman. The mixing element, which is known as time, is counted as the 25th element. Purport. According to the Vedic version, there is no existence beyond Brahman. Sarvam Khalv Idam Brahma. Chandogya Upanishad 3.14.1. It is stated also in the Vishnu Purana that whatever we see is Parasya Brahmana Shakti. Everything is an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Brahman. When Brahman is mixed with the three qualities, goodness, passion, and ignorance, there results the material expansion, which is sometimes called Saguna Brahman, and which consists of these 25 elements. In the Nirguna Brahman, where there is no material contamination, or in the spiritual world, the three modes, goodness, passion, ignorance, are not present or not present. Where Nirguna Brahman is found, simple unalloyed goodness prevails. Saguna Brahman is described by Sankhya system of philosophy as consisting of 25 elements, including the time factor, past, present, and future. Hare Krishna.
So these are the 24 elements, 5 plus 5, right? 5 gross elements, bhumi, rapo, anulo, vayu, kham. Then 5 tanmatra. Then there are 5 karmendriya, 5 gyanendriya, and then there are 4 internal subtle senses, that ahankar, man, buddhi, ahankar, and chitta. So these are the 24. 25th is etavaneva sankhyato brahmanah sagunasya yah. So the 25th element is called as kala, and all these are considered as qualified Brahman. Mixing element, which is time, kala, is counted as 25th element. So one should be very clear that these are the 25 elements, right? In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains there is no existence beyond Brahman, and therefore Vedas says sarvam khalvidam Brahman, sarvam kharvidam Brahma, everything is Brahma. Or, Prabhupada says, Vishnu Puran, there is a description of Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. Now, this we have, Prabhupada has very beautifully previously explained. There is nothing called as material energy and spiritual energy. What is the classic example Prabhupada always gives for this? Energy is energy. What is the example?
Sun.
Yes.
Sun.
There's no
Yeah. So there is no difference between hot electricity and cold electricity. Electricity is electricity. The same electricity goes to freezer, you will get cold effect. It's same electricity goes to heater, one will get hot effects. So similarly, for the Lord, there is nothing called as material or spiritual. Right? So therefore, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. These are all energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although there is a differentiation, but from the sense of belonging to the Supreme Lord, everything belongs to Him. Right? And everything is therefore of the quality of Brahman. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahman. But when this Brahman is mixed with the three modes of material nature, it becomes Guna. Sa means along with, Guna means three modes of material nature. And this is called as Saguna Brahman. So Saguna Brahman means the Brahman, the energy of the Lord, which is mixed with the material nature. Nirguna Brahman means which is unalloyed by, which is not mixed with the material nature. Nirguna. There are no gunas. Daivihesha Gunamayi. So Guna here is the three modes of material nature. So the Brahman, which is without the contamination of the three modes of material nature, is called as Nirguna Brahman. So here one can see Prabhupada says Saguna Brahman is described by Sankhya system of philosophy by considering 25 elements. So Sankhya here is going to describe about the Saguna Brahman, and that is 25 elements, where 25th element is Kala. In three aspects of Kala, Bhuta, Vartaman and Bhavishya, past, present and future. Text 16. Prabhavam Paurusham Prahu Kalameke Yato Bhayam Ahankar Vimudasya Kartuhu Prakritim Ushaha. Translation.
Translation. The influence of Supreme Personality of Godhead is felt in the time factor, which causes fear of death due to the false ego of deluded soul who has contracted material nature. Purport. The living entity's fear of death is due to his false ego of identifying with the body. Everyone is afraid of death. Actually, there is no death for the spirit soul, but due to our absorption in the identification of body as self, the fear of death develops. It is also stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.37, Bhayam Dvitiya bhi niveshataha syat. Dvitiya refers to matter, which is beyond spirit. Matter is the secondary manifestation of spirit, for matter is produced from spirit. Just as the material elements described are caused by the Supreme Lord or the Supreme Spirit, the body is also product of spirit soul. Therefore, the material body is called Dvitiya or the second. One who is absorbed in this second element or second exhibition of the spirit is afraid of death. When one is fully convinced that he is not his body, there is no question of fearing death, since the spirit soul does not die. If the spirit soul engages in the spiritual activities of devotional service, he is completely freed from platform of birth and death. His next position is complete spiritual freedom from material body. The fear of death is the action of the Kala or the time factor, which represents the influence of Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, time is destructive. Whatever is created is subject to destruction and dissolution, which is the action of the time. Time is a representation of Lord, and it reminds us also that we must surrender unto the Lord. The Lord speaks to every conditioned soul as time. He says in Bhagavad Gita that if someone surrenders unto him, then there is no longer any problem of birth and death. We should therefore accept the time factor as the Supreme Personality of Godhead standing before us. This is further explained in the following verse.
So now the influence of time, now we are talking about the 25th element as Kala, and the influence of the Supreme Lord can be felt in time factor. And this time factor causes the fear of death due to the false ego of the deluded soul who considered himself as material. Okay. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, that the living entity's fear of death is due to false ego of identifying with matter. The living entity is spiritual. There is no beginning, no end to the living entity. But as soon as the living entity identifies with matter, automatically, because it will take the characteristics of matter. And what are the characteristics of the matter? The matter of characteristics are six. It is birth, then growth, then the stay for a while, produce byproduct, dwindle, and death. And because we identify ourselves with matter, we take on the characteristics of the matter. And because there is a death and there is uncertainty, again there is, so Gautam very beautifully explains in this verse. Bhayam dvitiya abhinivesayas. Abhinivesha means deep absorption. Abhinivesh, right? Abhinivesh. So when there is a secondary deep absorption for the spirit soul, then automatically there will be bhaya. And what is that secondary absorption? The secondary absorption means a living entity has to be absorbed. So if the living entity is not absorbed in Krishna consciousness, he will be absorbed in the matter, material consciousness. And to the degree we are absorbed in matter, to that degree there will be great fear. Further, Srila Prabhupada explains that the spirit soul has to absorb oneself in spiritual activities. And as soon as one absorbs himself in spiritual activities, one will go beyond the platform of birth and death, and one will attain the spiritual freedom. In the material world, everything is under the subjugation of Kala. The Kala is the ultimate factor. So, right, time and space. So, space is also under control of Kala. And Kala therefore represents, the time I am, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the time represents the surrender to the Supreme Lord. So Kala actually means surrender to the Supreme Lord. So time means, Prabhupada writes beautiful statement, time means it reminds us that we must surrender unto the Supreme Lord, and the Lord speaks to every conditioned soul as time. So powerful. Huh? Lord speaks to every conditioned soul as time. And this is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, that we should take this time factor as the God standing before us. And now how this is explained in text 17. Text 17. Prakrite nirguna samyasya nirvisheshasya manavi cheshtaha yatah sa bhagavan kala ityupalakshitah. Translation.
My dear mother, O daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, the time factor, as I have explained, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom the creation begins as a result of the agitation of the neutral, unmanifested nature. Purport. The unmanifested state of the material nature, pradhana, is being explained. The Lord says that when the unmanifested material nature is agitated by the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it begins to manifest itself in different ways. Before this agitation, it remains in the neutral state, without interaction by the three modes of material nature. In other words, material nature cannot produce any variety of manifestations without the contact of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is very nicely explained in Bhagavad Gita. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of the products of material nature. Without his contact, material nature cannot produce anything. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita also, a very suitable example is given in this connection. Although the nipples of a goat's neck appear to be breast nipples, they do not give milk. Similarly, material nature appears to be the material scientist to act and react in a wonderful manner, but in reality it cannot act without the agitator, time, who is the representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When time agitates the neutral state of material nature begins to produce varieties of manifestations. Ultimately, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of creation. As a woman cannot produce children unless impregnated by a man, material nature cannot produce or manifest anything unless it is impregnated by the Supreme Person of Godhead in the form of the time factor. Thank you, Prabhu.
Now Kapila Muni says, Prakriter guna samyasya nirvisheshasya manavi. Manavi is daughter of Manu. So therefore, he's addressing his mother as Manavi. O daughter of Swayambhu Manu, the time factor from whom the creation begins as a result of agitation of the neutral, unmanifested nature. So he says, my dear mother, I have explained to you what is the pradhana, unmanifested state of material nature. And when this pradhana is agitated by the glance of the Lord, then there begins the different manifestations. Right. So, in other words, Prabhupada says that the material nature on itself cannot produce anything on its own. Just like there can be H2 and O2 in the laboratory, and H2 and O2 will stand for a long time without getting mixed. It is not that H2 will feel at one point of time feeling very lonely, let's mix together and form H2O. No. Somebody, a living scientist, has to come and mix. So Prabhupada says the material nature appears to be very fantastic to the scientist. And nowadays, though, if you just look on the Discovery Channel or any other channel, you will find such phenomenal information coming. There is the Hubble is sending so much of information, Hubble telescope. Then you have the James Webb sending another phenomenal explanation. And it may appear that material nature is acting very wonderfully. Right. But Prabhupada says that is not the case. For material nature to act, there has to be agitation by time. And time is under control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is representing the Supreme Lord. So when the time agitates, the neutral state of pradhana, the material nature, begins to manifest and makes varieties of manifestation. But without time, material nature on its own cannot act. And Prabhupada gives here two examples. One is, goat's neck and, having something looking like a nipple, and one may think, there may be, no, the milk is not going to come from there. Another example Prabhupada says, however fertile the Prakriti may be, there has to be Purusha to give the seed. Right. So similarly, however wonderful the material nature look like, without that glance of the Supreme Lord, material nature cannot act. Right. And this is very beautifully confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Mayadhyakshena Prakriti. So Mayadhyakshena means under my supervision, vision, the words, Aksha, Adhyaksha. And also it is talked about Sa Aikshataha, that the Supreme Lord, he glanced. And after his glance, the whole thing started sizzling and came to life. Text 18. Antah Purusha Rupena Kala Rupena Yobahi Samanvetyesha Sattvanam Bhagavan Atmamayaya. Translation.
By exhibiting his potencies, the Supreme Personality of Godhead adjusts all these different elements, keeping himself within as the Super Soul and without as time. Purport. Here it is stated that within the heart of the Supreme Personality of Godhead resides as the Super Soul. This situation is also explained in Bhagavad Gita. The Super Soul rests beside the individual soul and acts as a witness. This is also confirmed elsewhere in the Vedic literature. Two birds are sitting on the same tree of the body. One is witnessing and the other is eating the fruits of the tree. This Purusha or Paramatma who resides within the body of the individual soul is described in the Bhagavad Gita 13.23 as the Upadrashta, witness, and the Anumanta, sanctioning authority. The conditioned soul engages in the happiness and distress of the particular body given him by the arrangement of the external energy of the Supreme Lord. But the Supreme Living Being or Paramatma is different from the conditioned soul. He is described in Bhagavad Gita as Maheshwara or the Supreme Lord. He is Paramatma, not Jivatma. Paramatma means the Super Soul, who is sitting by the side of the conditioned soul just to sanction his activities. The conditioned soul comes to this material world in order to lord it over material nature. Since one cannot do anything without the sanction of the Supreme Lord, he lives with Jiva, soul, as witness and sanction giver. He is also Bhokta. He gives maintenance and sustenance to the conditioned soul. Since the living entity is constitutionally part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord is very affectionate to the living entities. Unfortunately, when the living entity is bewildered or illusioned by the external energy, he becomes forgetful of his eternal relationship with the Lord. But as soon as he becomes aware of his constitutional position, he is liberated. The minute independence of the conditioned soul is exhibited by his marginal position. If he likes, he can forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead and come into the material existence with a false ego to lord it over material nature. But if he likes, he can turn his face to the service of the Lord. The individual living entity is given that independence. The conditional life is ended, and the life becomes successful as soon as he turns his face to the Lord. But by the misusing his independence, he enters into material existence. Yet the Lord is so kind that as a super soul, he always remains with the conditioned soul. The concern of the Lord is neither to enjoy nor to suffer from the material body. He remains with the Jiva simply as sanction giver and witness so that the living entity can receive the result of his activities, good or bad. Outside the body of the conditioned soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead remains as the time factor. According to the Sankhya system of philosophy, there are 25 elements. The 24 elements already described plus the time factor make 25. According to some learned philosophers, the super soul is included to make a total of 26 elements.
So now here, Antah Purusha Rupena, in the form of the super soul, Kala Rupena Yobahi. Antah, inside, Antah he is as Purusha Rupena, as Paramatma, and Kala Rupena Yobahi, and outside as Kala Rupa, Bhagavan Atmamaya. By exhibiting his potencies, the Lord exhibits himself from within as super soul and from without as time. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that within the core of the heart, everybody's heart, there is Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is explained in Bhagavad Gita and so many Vedic literature. Bhagavad Gita, we have this, Riddeshe Arjuna Tishtati, Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani, Yantra Rudhani Maya. What is the first line? Or there is our Sarvasya Chaham Ridhi Sannivishto, that everybody's heart, there is Paramatma situated. And there are many Vedic references where there is a description of, on the tree of the body, there are two birds who are sitting. There is the Mundaka Upanishad, Shvetashvatar Upanishad talks about the Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakhaya Samana Vrikshe Parishasvajate Tayoranya Pippalam. That one bird is engaged in tasting the fruits of the tree. However, the second bird is simply witnessing the other bird. These two birds are not same, right? There are two birds existing. One bird is called as Atma, another bird is called as Paramatma. And this Paramatma is very beautifully explained in Bhagavad Gita. He is Upadrishtacha, Anumantacha, Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwara. He is Maheshwara, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is Upadrishta, witnessing, Anumanta, sanctioning. So these are the two activities of Paramatma, who is super soul, who is sitting next to the Jiva on the body of on the tree of the body. Right. Further, Srila Prabhupada explains that there is when the living entity, why the Supreme Lord is sitting next to living entity, and the living entity may go to any form, the Lord will always accompany him as Paramatma. The living entity may become a mosquito, cockroach, amoeba, demigod, or anybody, donkey. The Lord will always go and sit with the living entity. Why? Why? Because originally, Mamaivamsho Jivaloke. Prabhupada says, since the living entity is constitutionally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, the Lord is extremely affectionate to living entity. Just imagine, the child is angry, a very small child, like 6 months, 8 months old child, like our Sia, so, and becomes very, very angry. And, she takes something like, the child takes on something like the cover of elephant and says that, Mama, I have become elephant now. I'm going to garden. Mama will say, okay, go to garden because you are angry. You will not listen to me, not go there. But I will also come with you. From a distance, I will keep eye on you. Then, Mama, I'm bored being elephant. I will become fish now. I'm going to go to pond. So because the parents are very affectionate to the child, similarly, the Supreme Lord is extremely affectionate to living entity. And wherever the living entity goes, the Lord always accompanies. And therefore, in the prayers of Gajendra, the Lord is called as Bhuri Karunaya. Bhuri Karunaya means infinite compassion the Lord has upon the living entity. Infinite compassion. So from within, he comes as Antaha Purusha Rupena, as Paramatma. And Kala Rupena Yobahi. And from outside the body of the conditioned soul, the Lord remains as the time factor. So whenever we look at the watch, we should remember that he is the Supreme Lord. Watch means he's watching us, right? He's the Kala Rupena, he's the 25th element. Sometimes in some of the Sankhya descriptions, the super soul is also included in Sankhya, in counting, and they say that super soul is considered as the 26th element. But super soul is actually beyond all this, and everything is coming from him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone.
Jai Ho, all glories to Mukranand Prabhu and team. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, small question.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Bol. Prabhuji, can you hear me? Prabhu, I cannot hear you. Okay.
You're audible.
Okay. Prabhu, my question is the 24th element, contaminated consciousness. In Sanskrit, you said mana, buddhi, ahankara, and chitta. But chitta itself is also considered as soul. So is it a contaminated consciousness which is a property of a soul or a soul itself? Soul is anyway spiritual. It's not 24th element.
Yeah, right. It is soul only. But see, what we have to say is, when the Sankhya keeps on counting, they will count till soul. And
Okay.
because the atheistic Sankhya, they will not accept soul also. They will say consciousness. And when you ask them from where the consciousness begins, and that's where they will say Darwin's theory. That by the combination of the matter only, the consciousness comes in.
Okay.
So they will accept everything as material, including the Lord also. And that's why they will counting super soul also as one of the element. But Chittam, there is soul. Right. So
Okay.
Kala is, the Kala is there, then Chitta is there, and then the super soul is also there. So Chitta is the soul, and that's why in that purport Srila Prabhupada very, elaborately explains about Chitta means it is actually the consciousness, and consciousness is symptom of soul.
Okay.
There is a consciousness, like that it is. In the atheistic concept.
Okay.
But for all practical purposes, Chittam is soul, which is consciousness. And because in the material world it is contaminated, and therefore Chittam is now called as contaminated consciousness, which represents soul.
Okay. So 23 are pure material. So 24th is Chitta, which is soul, and 25th time, which is representative of super soul.
Right. Now pure material means, because we think like that, it is pure hot electricity or pure cold electricity.
Okay. For God is the same.
For the Lord, there is nothing called as material and spiritual. Just like for the electrician, there is nothing called as hot electricity, cold electricity. It is electricity.
Yes.
The Lord can convert matter into spirit. What is the example? The example is the deity, right? When the Lord descends in the deity form, Pratima Nahitumi Sakshat Vrajendranandan. The Lord, before Lord entering, before Lord Prana Pratishtha, deity is made up of something material. That's why the matter can see, matter can perceive. But the deity can have a complete experience of this, can give a complete experience of spiritual based on, the reciprocation of a devotee. Sakam vacham spruhaniyam vadanti. And similarly, the Lord can convert spirit into matter. Right? So, for the Lord, there is no difference between matter and spirit in a way, because everything is energy. Of course, spirit into matter means, like Ahilya is being cursed for a stone for a while. So, or the living entity in a way converted like matter only, because he thinks like a matter, he acts like a matter, and he paropi manute anartham. So he behaves like a matter by the illusion of the Maya, which is controlled by the Lord. So for the Lord, there is no difference. And that's from there comes the idea of Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. Everything is Brahman, everything is energy of the Lord. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. So that's where Srila Prabhupada quotes this too. Right? Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.